Well, I am incredibly pleased to add a third co-host to the Good News Programming. Jeff Lutz, you probably know him. You've probably seen him. But just briefly, his career has been encompassed working at many major automakers in top executive roles directly related to the factory floor, both in the United States and in China. Is there anything you would add to that, Jeff, in terms of your specific roles?
Well, I would say my career has been at, tech companies, not necessarily automakers. I've definitely been studying the automakers, but worked at multiple Fortune 100 companies, C-level exec roles in supply chain, as well as chief quality officer of a couple of them too.
All right. So a very broad background in factory
Yep.
kinds of things, in bringing products to life, and complex products, as opposed to me, where my products weren't so complex on the factory floor. So before we get into the news part of the show, could you give me a couple of your top takeaways from the Cybertruck handover and what has emerged since?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was being able to walk through a factory operation. That's a very special thing for me, given my career. And I used to not only there's people that work in engineering or supply chain roles and don't like factories, and there's people that work in those roles that do like spending time in the factory. I did like spending a lot of time in the factories because that's where you actually learn how things are going versus what you can read on a piece of paper on a computer screen. And from walking through walking through the factory was, to me, it showed that there's a fairly advanced or high level of automation going on to make the Cybertruck.
Uh-huh.
And right now it looks like they're in the mode of a typical ramp up, which is what you're trying to do is you're trying to have your inbound supply chain fill up the operation, flush it with material. So you've got every station filled up and you've got product moving. What we saw, on the day of the event, I think, some people, understood this, or maybe some did, but these stations were running in kind of a loop or demo mode to show us the operation, show us the tire being put on, show us the front engine being installed, which one of the videos I shared, and show body panel attach. But there's a significant amount of automation. There's a significant amount of automated inspection going on to build this product, so every product comes out, tip top in terms of quality, build quality, and reliability. So that was one key takeaway. I think the other takeaway was just a lot of the hidden, things that weren't necessarily announced at the event, but are major features of the product. The power shares, one big example of that. The attachable additional range on the product. And they spent a little bit of time on the the steer by wire performance, but the car turns like a sedan, a sports sedan, and it's a large truck. So for me, the second kind of takeaway was, I think Tesla could have spent more time talking about these very, very special features. Now we know that the battery pack is sealed and it gets pressurized if you're going into a high water environment. These are all the details that Tesla thinks about. And I understand that they wouldn't be headliners on the event, but they're also very special things that they've done for engineering that really make it a special product.
Yeah, and tomorrow we've got Larry Goldberg coming on at roughly the noon hour California time, and he's doing a thorough, complete look at the 48-volt system, along with all of the ways that the wiring is going to be just changing everything about what's happening underneath the skin. Fascinating. We've already shot the video, so I learned so much. I was just blown away. It's kind of almost on the level of landing the rockets and using them again. I mean, this is like a big step, it seems to me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the analysts, especially some of the lead analysts, are missing that they one of the analysts, I think, called it an art truck. And
Yeah, right.
if you have an art truck, you would have focused on the exterior and the aesthetics. You wouldn't have done everything that's happening, quote unquote, under the hood, like what you mentioned, the 40-volt architecture. the 800-volt charging. There's all these things that Tesla had to do that they didn't have to do if this was just going to be a niche, few thousand units a year type thing. But this isn't the case. I do think this product will get into significant volume over time. I do think from a quality perspective, they're doing a little bit more of a controlled rollout. And I applaud them for that. Anytime when you're an OEM and you enter a new category of product, and then in that category, you do everything new to yourselves and new to the industry, your probability of having a problem is elevated significantly as you get more volume of your product out there. Remember, there are only dozens of these trucks out there in testing prior to launch. So the controlled rollout they're doing, I think that's the right thing to do. It allows their supply base to ramp and allows them to get a faster feedback loop. When you do a controlled rollout, you want to compress that time from the consumer experiencing the issue to the solution rolling over and cutting over into the line. And I think Tesla's got great expertise at that, and a controlled rollout will have that.
Well, and apparently everybody's been wondering, well, what's happened to those 20 people that got the trucks, and what's happened to any trucks that have been shipped since? And we've learned today, I guess, that there's a special foundation issue of the truck, which is at 120,000, has everything you can possibly put into the truck, apparently, for 120,000. And apparently Jay Leno has gotten one of those. But I'm guessing maybe everybody that's gotten a truck so far must be on an NDA or something, because we're not really hearing from anybody so far. Yeah,
and it doesn't help Tesla to see issues on YouTube or X. It's better for them to just, here's this, you've got this foundation truck. Here's our direct email to get a hold of engineering, and this will be the quickest way for you to report an issue and for us to solve it. So I'm totally supportive of the NDA. I think it helps them with the brand. It helps them with the product. And you don't want, Tesla's a heavily shorted company. You just don't want these things getting into nefarious hands and people doing, things to destroy the product and distract people. So I'm supportive of what they're doing.
Cool. Well, for the second day in a row in the stock market, Tesla and the markets roared up, and then they got crushed. And Tesla outperformed all day long and was still outperforming at the end, probably due to the Cybertruck. But yesterday, I saw that Moody's downgrade of China might have been about the time when everything got crushed. So everybody that was associated with China kind of took a hit. I'm still trying to figure out what happened today. Do you have any thoughts on what might have harmed the market in the middle of the day today?
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. We had ADP information this morning. We've had a lot of we had JOLTS yesterday. And what we've learned with JOLTS, that's a kind of a 1 or 2 month in arrears view of the job availability and movement that the Fed uses. And what we learned is not only did this, report come in appreciably lower, but the last 4 have been restated. And, that tells me one of the key things that is one of the Fed mandates is around unemployment. And they've been using data that's been literally restated 4 times in a row to the downside. So it tells me the jobs picture is not as good as what we once thought. And we're in this mode right now where we're going to flip, I think, between is bad news now, or because it's been bad news has been good news, and good news on the economy has been bad for the market. So I think we're in this market point right now where the market's trying to figure that out. And we see the Fed funds future pulling rate cuts into March now with greater probability, even a small percentage in January. So I think we're in that mode now. I think the markets are adjusting. There may be some rotation. We see the yields, coming down below 4.2 pretty significantly. So I think it's in this adjustment period. But not trading advice, but I do think there's time for a rally still.
Oh, yeah. I'm on record saying that I think we're in the second leg of the bull and that this will continue. A lot of analysts are saying that we've got the Santa Claus rally still to come. Numbers of things that I reported on last week suggest that if you have this big November like we just did, that you're probably going to have a very good 2024. And it's also an election year, which typically is good. So of course, I'm a good news kind of guy. That's why we call the channel what we call it. But
Yeah.
things seem to be good. But to your point, maybe the market was like, whoops, oh my goodness, maybe we should, because the market went up in the morning when those numbers came out very strongly. So I thought, well, okay, they're digesting those numbers just fine. And then it just kind of turned in the middle of the day, and it could be profit taking. You never know. It could just be as simple as algorithms clicking in and saying,
I think
it's a good point.
I think there's some key levels we need to get beyond too. I don't have them written down in front of me, but we keep, like for Tesla, we keep bumping up at 245, 246 for the Qs and for the NASDAQ. I think we're probably trying to get over a couple of key levels, and we're getting rejected, but at some point it's going to break through, or there's going to be news that says it's going to break down. I think we get the November jobs report on Friday.
Oh yeah.
That'll be a big one, and then we'll get an inflation readout probably a week after, right?
We get the Fed next week, so that'll be big. So there was a lot of talk this morning. I was one of the first ones to have it on YouTube this morning that Giga Shanghai #2 has been greenlit. Is, I think, more of a maybe. We don't really have any confirmation that I've seen so far. I was kind of away from the desk for a few hours there, but Larry Goldberg is taking credit. He said as soon as Elon shook hands with Xi, he knew that it was going to be greenlit. So what do you think? Is this a fact? Are we going there? Is this going to happen next?
Well, I think Larry's right. I think that was there was a dinner, and then there was kind of a VIP session for them to have time to actually exchange a few words and shake hands. And she says he's very supportive of Tesla's business. Literally the next day, I think they were removing those signs that said, if you drive a Tesla in this area, you can't, because the cameras on the car. They removed all that. I think a lot of the bigger thing for Tesla, I think, would be getting the FSD approvals to be able to do broader testing. And then, obviously a huge thing would be starting that second phase. China benefits from a strong, OEM in there, and and it helps them, even though Tesla's not physically in a joint venture. The fact that there's tens of thousands of employees that are being kind of trained in the Tesla way is helpful as those employees move around. That invariably happens. Tesla's also localized their supply base around Shanghai. It's about over 95% now localized. It's a big deal for the economy. And there's a big export. It's a big export business for them. So there's every reason for Xi and his team to be open arms welcoming Tesla.
Yeah, especially with their economy being what it is right now.
Exactly.
So you have shown confidence in the past that the Isaacson bio was correct about the next gen first production in Austin, and now we have that confirmation. You've been right all along. So what do you think in general? Any ideas on the minimum viable production coming from that facility? And will we still call it a line, or will it have a new name?
Yeah, it'll be a line. And my thoughts. First off, I've always thought it's not a good move to do new product, new manufacturing method in a new factory. I think those three things just don't go together. So the move to Austin, not only that it's co-located with engineering, which is huge, but now you have existing factory, co-location with engineering, and new product, new manufacturing methods. So you've really reduced down the variation. And so what they should do to ramp up Mexico is put an existing product in there and let them ramp. I believe on the $25,000 vehicle, I think $25,000 may be too expensive, by the way. I think they're going to have to go lower. Because right now, we have Model 3s in the upper 20s, and there's discounting happening. These are small numbers, but it just shows you that I think when you get in that area, every $1,000 is a fairly significant move up in terms of total available market. But I think they have to go lower than that, and I think they're going to build this everywhere. Yeah. I think every factory right now, every existing Tesla location is doing a phased add-on addition that will be related to the $25,000 car, whether it's, Austin, whether it's Berlin, Shanghai. I think they're all adding on. I think India will eventually build this vehicle. And there's just going to be tremendous amount of volume behind this product. And you'll want to localize at this cost structure. You really want to localize manufacturing, because what will happen is the portion of distribution, the percent of distribution, if you're building this thing in China and exporting it to wherever, that percent of distribution of the total unit economics would be huge on that low of car. So I think they got to shoot for something in the $17,000 range on COGS, maybe 18,000, somewhere in that range. And you want to be localizing manufacturing.
And what do you think is the minimum viable production in Austin? Do you think it's 250,000, or do you think it's less? What do you think?
Oh, for that product? I mean, I haven't given that. That's a great question. I've given some thought. I mean, certainly they're going to build the pilot line in Austin. And the question is that a full production line? It probably is. And is it capable of running at full rate? Normally when you've got a prototype operation, very small rates, and then you've got something that's, in the development stage, you try to get to around 25% of the run rate of the final production volume. So yeah, is this going to be 25 to 50% of a production, total production line, or is this going to be the full thing? It's a good question. Tesla will have to ultimately advise. I mean, there's a ton of space. Austin's gigantic.
Okay.
There's a ton of space. They can do whatever they want.
Okay.
So I think we'll hear from them soon.
And then, I've been saying that if they were going to make it in Mexico, they could have made it in early 2025. If Elon is saying that he couldn't wait that long, that they must be shooting for later in 2024 as maybe starting to roll these out. What do you think?
That's a good question. It is it's a little bit of a black box, the way they're describing their progress. They're reviewing, he says they're reviewing the design of the manufacturing operation. That could be at any phase really of the product.
Elon says it's quite advanced.
Yeah, quite advanced is still relative. So I would want to see, when you see the first functioning car, that's a reasonable data point. But that could also be all of a quick turn prototype tooling. It is certainly possible. I would venture to guess that volume production would be more in the first half of 25.
Oh yeah, volume production. I'm just saying the beginning of the ramp would be in 2024, or they could have just waited for Mexico.
Yeah. The best place for us to get that intelligence would probably be from, following the supply base and their movement. But yeah, I would think, to answer your question, I would think the supply base would be ramping in Q4. And the question is would any product ship by the end of 24? Hard to say. Now when you have a new product like this, between one quarter and the next, it's going to be hard to say, but I would hope that the supply base is ramping. And I hope, the other thing that this could do is this is on the 48 volt architecture. This could really help the Cybertruck from a COGS perspective, because right now the 48 volt is a great solution to reduce waste and have the minimum amount of COGS per one car built. But the problem is the supply chain leverage on the 48 volt is really low compared to the an 80 million unit car industry.
Sure.
So I think right now that would be winning in terms of dragging down COGS a bit. So yeah, long story short, if the 40 volt could be on the 25K car and that could start ramping next year, that would help Tesla tremendously with Cybertruck COGS right away.
All right. Well, listen, why don't we take a look at where the markets are right now? I've got Tesla in the after hours up 77 more cents. So it is continuing to try to build back. It was up that 10 extra points on what's today? Today's Wednesday. On Tuesday, it had bumped up 10, came back down And then tried to do that again today, and it got kicked back down and only was up 65 cents. So today we're in the after hours, we're back up another 76. Like you said, it seems to be bouncing up in that high 240s, but things seem to be knocking it back down. Do you think do you think it's just going to be a kind of a steady move now, or what do you think?
Well, I think I think the options market is in control of a lot of this. And I think what we're going to need to do is they're going to need to get hit with some news that they can't, FUD. Whether if it's Tesla, if it's Elon coming out and say, hey, look, rates have come down 100 basis points in a matter of a month or two. I'm feeling better about, where things are going. So I think the Fed could help a lot. You need to hear. We haven't heard Elon respond to now. The last time Elon spoke was in October when we were still in this environment of 5%.
Yeah.
We had 5% Fed funds rate. So we need to hear him speak. We need, possibly could Q4 be, could they hit the 1.8, and could Q4 even be a bigger quarter? Those are the kind of things. There's rumors of things like that come out. I think that could start unraveling the folks that are playing the options and really start moving the thing over 250. I think the Cybertruck took a couple of days for it to kind of settle from a news perspective. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think if you get some news about the current quarter, or you get some outlook news from Elon of like, hey, look, the competition's pulled back a bit for next year, and we've installed all this capacity. We're feeling good about rates coming down. And then you have the $7,500 point of sale credit. Right. It's in 3 weeks.
Yep.
Basically.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of the bond rates, we've got in the pre-market, the bonds are down another 11 basis points. I'm sorry, down another 1.1 basis points. So we're down to 4.11 now. And I think earlier it was even under 4.1. So this is really great, except we have the 2-month actually going up today and in the pre-market. So it's now at 5.4, and the 2-year is down a little bit, but it's still at 4.6. I made a statement today, and I'd love to hear what you think about this, Jeff. I made a statement today that that's the next thing that we're going to see. We're going to see a big rally in these short-term bonds. They are way, way, way undersold. And there's going to be a day when people are going to go, okay, I need some of that.
Yeah, I think they may be waiting to hear from the Fed, but I agree with you. I think they're out of bounds or out of position at this point. We got a pending home sales number, I think 24 or 48 hours ago. That is the worst number since the great financial crisis. So you have a jobs market in fairly significant decline, and you've got pending home sales, the worst number since 2008. I mean, I don't know what the Fed's waiting for, but I think the market is telling them like, you're done. And the only thing I would be a little bit concerned about with the Fed is he going to try to, like, in the last meeting, he had, the markets were working for him and keeping rates high. So now is he going to have to come out and be extra hawkish? Because my whole thing with the Fed is they're not going to come out and be dovish until the day that they're ready to quote unquote pivot or cut. And but until then, I think they're going to be fairly hawkish. So that could be the risk, for next week. Is he going to try to undo some of this?
So the oil number is down. I mean, so it's up in, I'm sorry, I lost my spot. The oil is up 12 cents in the pre-market, but was down like almost $3 today in the regular market. So it is now under $70 on the West Texas Intermediate. I was calling that last week. I was saying it looks to me like it's going to go under 70. And so we're now at 69.49, and the gasoline has been down. I think it's 5 weeks in a row or something. It's down to like $3.25. So that would seem to me that would be really, really key to the Fed in terms of their thinking as well, giving them some room to start to at least become a little more dovish.
Yeah. The thing that's been not in the CPI that's been lagging has been the home sales. That's going to start coming in. They don't even use home sales. They use owner equivalent rent. Right. But now that's going to start, the pending home sales will really start affecting that. And then, everything in the CPI is around energy. So these numbers are going to really start helping big time.
And then we've got gold. Gold has been strong, but people have been wondering, why is gold so strong right now? Typically, you think of a flight to safety. You think that you're trying to outrun inflation, but the inflation thing is going this way. Flight to safety. Maybe there's a little bit of people that are getting into gold and or the what do you want to call it, the value stocks, because they want something a little more solid. But what do you think? Why do you think gold has had this huge run?
There's a number of transitions happening. You have Bitcoin, I think, going over 43, 44K.
Yes.
You've Ethereum going up. You've got gold shooting up. You've got the bond market making this big move in the 10 and the 30 year. I just think you have a market in transition. The data is now coming in that says maybe the Fed is not in control. So all early things now guess what? I mean, when you have a NASDAQ that's up 35% on the year, that 5% bond rate isn't that attractive anymore. So you're going to have a bunch of dynamics happening in December. You have people trying to catch up. You have fund managers that are going to be trying to catch up that missed a lot of this. You're going to have some tax loss selling. I don't think it's going to be horrendous. I think people have started early. But I just think the answer, Randy, is just this market is in transition. Given what's happened with a lot of the macro figures, and it's now in this adjustment period. So people, I think money's going to definitely start coming off the sidelines.
So there was a lot of money came off the sidelines in November. I haven't seen any December numbers yet. I've been calling for about 4 months. I've been calling for the rotation to begin. I didn't suggest it would happen 4 months ago. I just said there's going to have to be a rotation at some point. The last week seemed to be some indication of some money coming out of the NASDAQ and out of the tech stocks into some of the value stocks. And then this right now, I'm looking at the NASDAQ, though, is actually down less. Everything's down in the pre-market. The NASDAQ is down $3.75, down 0.02. The S&P is down $2 at 0.04, but the Dow is actually down a little more, down 23 at 0.06. None of it significant, but where we've been seeing the NASDAQ being underperforming the other two for the last week, more or less. At least today, we saw a little bit of reversal of that. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of gearing up. It's taken a little bit of a breather since that big run up in November. But you do look at the Magnificent Seven; they've run a lot, but some of them have pulled back. I mean, Nvidia's pulled back maybe 10, 12%. Meta's run a lot. Maybe just pulled back a smidge. Amazon is run really no pullback on that one recently. Same with Google. So I just think it was kind of a heated November, and I think you're going to see some broadening, and also small caps. Small caps are catching a bit. They've been getting roasted all year, so they're going to catch a bid. As again, fund managers are looking for outsized gains, and you're probably not going to get that in the Magnificent Seven over the next 20 or so trading days. And so you're going to see some hits on, I think, small caps. So and you're going to see people trying to hit some stocks that may not have gotten love throughout the year that should.
So Jeff, do you follow the Cathie Woods? I call them the Cathie Woods. So the Cathie Woods, her actual ETFs, and then I also follow several of the ones that she loves within those ETFs. I see those as a group. I call them the risky growth stocks, and they're just been doing great for the last 40 days. What you follow that as well? Yeah,
I follow that as well. I'm not a huge fan of that portfolio. I haven't bought that that ETF. Some of the things don't make as much sense to me yet. And I'd like to see them. I was surprised that they didn't re-add to their Tesla position, maybe in the 230s. I was a little surprised to see that. So I'll be interested though. They said that they're kind of they're kind of waiting to hear from Elon in terms of how he sees macro, and so his words are very important.
Yes.
And I think a lot of them are waiting on that.
All right, last thought for the day. This is just breaking news, and maybe you won't have anything to say about it, but China says they're really, really worried about SpaceX. This came out just before we went on air. that they see this as a threat, as a big deal.
Yeah. I've seen that. We don't know exactly where that comes from inside of the CCP. But if you look at the amount of payload that SpaceX is putting up, it dwarfs everything really, honestly, in the world.
Something like
And
80% this year, I think.
yeah. And it's the method. This is the thing with SpaceX. The method is going to be very hard for them. I think they can copy this rapid prototyping and this rapid production pace. I think that's something China can copy. I think the tech is going to be much, much harder for them to copy. But I think SpaceX is a story of tremendous intellectual property all the way down to kind of the molecular level and how they engineer all these materials. Excuse me, and the process of product development and the process of production and the rapid iteration, those coupled together are going to be very difficult for them to they usually like being fast followers. So that I could see them being a little bit, but I don't. They certainly are very favorable of Elon Musk and Elon Musk companies.
Yes. Well, the last thing we always do on this show, Larry, is we always give one last shout out to Tesla stock. It is now up 90 cents, so it is inching up in the after hours. Thanks so much, Larry, for co-hosting on Wednesday night. And what did I call you? I called you Larry. You don't even look like Larry, not even close. Okay, Jeff, thank you for co-hosting on Wednesday night.
No worries.
All right.
No worries.
All right. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.